go back on the record. The record will reflect the presence of all jurors, all counsel and defendant are present. The witness and the interpreter are making their way in. All right, welcome back, ma'am.
Xin chào cô, chúc mừng cô quay trở lại.
The attorneys have a few more questions for you. So, Mr. Owens, would you like to continue your direct examination?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Ms. Doe number 3, we're just about done. The only thing I want to ask you is, during the first statement, the one that we just watched, did you tell the sheriff's deputy that you could not identify the person?
Bây giờ chúng ta cũng sắp xong rồi. Bây giờ tôi có một điều tôi muốn hỏi chị là vào cái lúc mà chị nói chuyện với cái người cảnh sát khi mà họ tới nhà chị đó, chị có phải chị nói là chị không có nhớ cái người đàn ông tới nhà chị hay không?
Đúng, tôi có nhớ.
Yes, that is correct. I cannot remember. I don't remember him.
Did a detective from the sheriff's department, an older gentleman with a mustache by the name of John Johnson, did he come and meet with you and your husband on June 7th of last year, 2018?
Có một người thám tử, cái người đó người hơi lớn tuổi tên là John Johnson, có đến gặp chị với chồng chị vào ngày 7 tây tháng 6 năm ngoái.
Đúng rồi.
Yes, that is correct.
Did he show you 6 photographs and ask if you would look at it?
Ông ta có cho chị xem 6 bức hình và biểu chị nhìn vô trong đó, đúng không?
Đúng.
Yes.
Did you tell him that you would not look at it?
Chị có nói với ông ta là chị không muốn nhìn cái hình đó hay sao? Chị có nói như vậy không?
Tôi không nhớ.
I cannot recall. I don't remember.
Did he open a closed folder and ask you to look at it, but you stood away from it?
Có phải ông ta mở cái folder hình ra nhưng mà chị quay chỗ khác, chị không muốn nhìn, có phải không?
Không nhớ. Quên luôn rồi, không nhớ.
I don't remember. I forgot.
That's okay. I know it's hard to think back to last June.
Tôi biết khó cho chị để chị nhớ lại từ tháng 6 năm ngoái. Yes, it has been a long time.
When he tried to show you the photographs, did you tell him that you could not identify the person?
Khi ông ta cố gắng cho chị xem mấy cái bức hình, có phải là chị nói với ông ta là chị không có nhớ cái người nào, phải không? Chị không biết người nào, chị không thể nào biết. Yes, that is correct.
Thank you. Nothing further, Your Honor.
All right, Cross.
Thank you, Your Honor. Genital 3, I'll be brief.
Bà Genital số 3, tôi sẽ cố gắng làm ngắn gọn cho bà.
I'm going to ask you a couple of questions,
Tôi sẽ hỏi bà một số câu hỏi.
and you can just answer yes or no.
Và chị có trả lời có hay không thôi.
Okay?
Có được hay không?
Được.
Yes, that's okay.
You saw this individual twice, is that right?
Chị đã thấy cái người đàn ông này 2 lần, có đúng không?
Đúng.
Yes, that is correct.
And you saw his body, his stature, is that right?
Và chị thấy cái dáng người của ông ta, đúng hay không? Chị thấy.
Đúng.
Yes.
And you told the officer that came to talk to you that the man was a few inches taller than you, right?
Và chị nói với cái người cảnh sát mà tới nhà đó là cái ông này đó là cao hơn chị khoảng một vài inch, có đúng hay không?
Đúng, tại vì tôi đứng vậy nè, tôi không có nhìn nó. Tôi đứng vậy nè, tôi đứng đây nè. Tôi không nhìn nó. Tôi không có nhìn nó. Với lại lúc mà nó vừa vô á, nó chào tôi cái.
I did not look at him.
Nó tôi thấy nó cao thôi chứ tôi không có nhìn vô mặt nó.
And then I didn't look at his face, but when he say hi to me, I look up and I know he's taller than me, but I didn't look at his face.
You told us that he was a few inches taller than you, correct?
Có phải là
Objection. This states the evidence as to the testimony.
câu phản đối câu hỏi.
Overruled. You can answer. Go ahead.
Có phải là bà nói là ông ta cao hơn bà khoảng một vài inches, một vài phân anh, có đúng hay không?
Tôi không Tôi chỉ thấy nó cao thôi chứ không biết nó cao bao nhiêu rồi nha.
I only knew that he is taller than me, but I don't know how taller, how many inches he is taller than me.
Do you remember coming to court back in July and testifying?
Chị có nhớ là chị có ra tòa vào tháng 7 và chị có ra khai, có đúng không? Yes.
And at that hearing, sounding court and counsel to page 59, lines 28,
Thank you.
Mở
page
trang
60,
số 79
line 3.
là hàng số 3.
The question was,
Câu hỏi là
did the man appear to be taller than you?
có phải người đàn ông đó trông có vẻ cao hơn cô hay không?
And you answered, yes,
Và câu trả lời của chị là có.
taller than me.
Ông ta cao hơn tôi.
Question,
Câu hỏi
by an inch or two?
khoảng 1 inch hay
And
là
your
2?
answer was a little bit, yes.
Câu trả lời của chị là một chút. Yes, là có.
That's what you said back at the first court that you
Cái
went
đó
to.
là cái ngày mà chị ra tòa lần đầu tiên vào tháng 7.
Lúc đó tôi cũng không nhớ, chị nhớ là cao chứ không.
I don't remember, but the only thing I remember is that he's taller.
So you don't remember saying that at the first court?
Không.
Như vậy chị không nhớ là chị có trả lời như vậy ở trong tòa. Chị có nhớ là chị trả lời trong tòa hay không?
Không nhớ.
I cannot recall.
Okay. You said that you saw his build, like how big he was.
Chị có nói là chị có thấy cái dáng người của ổng và ông ta lớn như thế nào, có đúng không?
Đúng, tôi thấy từ dưới.
Yes, I saw from the bottom up.
He was not fat, was he?
Ông ta không có mập, đúng không?
Mập.
No,
Cũng như hồi nãy tôi nói.
he is not fat like I was talking to you previously.
He was not fat or thin. He was just normal, like the guys that ride bicycles, right?
Ông ta không có mập mà không có ốm, ông ta là người bình thường giống như những người đi xe đạp, có đúng hay không? Yes, like the cyclists.
And that's pretty much what you remember about this man, correct?
Như vậy cái đó là những cái điều mà chỉ có nhiêu đó là chị nhớ về ông ta là như vậy thôi, có đúng không?
Tôi không có biết.
Yes, I don't know anything else.
Thank you, Ms. Joe. That's it.
All right, any redirect?
Yes, just very briefly. Was he muscular?
Ông ta có bắp thịt không?
Nó thì mấy người chạy xe đạp tất nhiên là có một chút thịt, bắp thịt rồi.
Yeah, like the cyclists, you know, they have a muscles.
All right, and she's indicating the bicep of the interpreter.
Tức là chị đang chỉ cái tay của em
Bicep of her arm.
là có bắp thịt. Yes.
Did he look like he worked out?
Chị nhìn ông ta giống như người
Exercise.
ông là cái người đi tập thể dục không? Chị nhìn cái người của ông ta giống như là cái người đi tập thể dục hay không?
Cái này tôi không biết lắm, mà tôi thấy nó giống như là mấy cái người mà nói chung tôi nói tóm tắt lại là tôi thấy giống như mấy cái người mà họ chạy xe đạp, chạy xe đua, cái người họ nó chắc cái thịt nó chắc thôi. Tôi không biết.
I don't know much about that, but the only thing I can tell you, like in general, his body is like fit, like the cyclists, the professional cyclists, they do drive a lot of bicycles, a lot.
Did he look like a professional athlete?
Chị nhìn ông ta giống như một cái nhà thể thao chuyên nghiệp hay không?
Cái này tôi không biết. Tôi không biết, cái này tôi không biết.
This I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how to answer.
Ms. Jane Doe number 3, when you were talking to the sheriff's deputy that was taking that statement, when he asked you if he was thin or if he was fat or if he was normal, did you point to the sheriff's deputy when you were describing what he was like?
Chị có nhớ cái ngày mà cái viên cảnh sát tới nhà để lấy cái bản báo cáo đó, lấy cái biên bản đó, thì ông ta hỏi chị á, là cái người đó ốm hay là mập hay là bình thường, và chị chỉ vô cái người của viên cảnh sát, có đúng hay không?
Đúng.
Yes, that is correct.
Đúng rồi, mà tôi nói cái người đó là nó không có mập như cái ông cảnh sát đó, ông cảnh sát nó mập lắm.
I told that person is not as fat as the deputy because the deputy is very fat.
Did you use that as an example?
Có phải chị nói cái đó giống như là một cái thí dụ đúng như vậy hay không? Yes.
Did you describe this person in your testimony on direct examination as muscular?
Có phải là vào cái bữa mà chị khai đó là chị nói với ông ta là cái người ông này có bắp thịt đúng hay không?
Thì giống như hồi nãy ông hỏi tôi câu hỏi này là mấy
Yes.
có chút xíu.
The same question like you asked me and I told you it's like muscle people. They have muscular body.
Thank you. Nothing further, Your Honor.
All right, and you recross.
The sheriff deputy that you spoke with at your home, he had big muscles, right?
Cái người cảnh sát mà tới
Just a moment.
nói tiếng Việt.
Now, ma'am, I know you appear to understand English based on what I saw in the video,
Theo tôi biết là chị biết
but
tiếng
you have
Mỹ.
to wait for the interpreter to fully interpret the question before you answer it, okay?
Chị phải chờ cho em dịch xong chị mới trả lời được.
All right, so we'll go ahead and have the interpreter repeat the question, which was, all right, the sheriff's deputy that spoke with you at your home, he had big muscles, right?
Cái người cảnh sát mà nói chuyện với chị tại nhà chị có phải là ông ta có bắp thịt rất là lớn hay không?
Cái ông đó ông mặc cái đồ cảnh sát, tôi không có thấy mà tôi thấy ổng cao lớn, ổng không có ốm.
Because that person was wearing a police uniform and I know he's like big macho body, big.
Tôi thấy bự bự.
I saw him like big, fat.
And the person that exposed himself was smaller than the person, the officer.
Và cái người mà tới nhà chị mà cởi cái quần đó đó là cái người đó có phải là nhỏ hơn là cái ông cảnh sát mà tới nhà hay không? Yes, smaller.
All right, can you redirect?
No, thank you.
Okay, can this witness be excused?
She may.
Ms. Watkins?
Yes, Your Honor.
Can she be excused? All right, ma'am, thank you very much
Dạ,
for your
cảm ơn
testimony.
chị.
You are finished.
Dạ, chúng
I
ta
have a
xong.
nice day.
Dạ,
Thank you
xong
very
rồi
much.
chị. Dạ.
Bye bye, thank you.
Dạ, chị có thể chị về được. Dạ.
Thank you. All right, next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. The people now call Deputy Kyle Klein.
You do solemnly state that the testimony you are about to give in the matter now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, it is.
If you would, please have a seat at the witness stand. And if you would, please state your name and spell your first and last name for the record.
Kyle Klein, K-Y-L-E-K-L-E-I-N.
Thank you.
Good morning, Deputy Klein.
Good morning, sir.
Thank you for being here. Direct examination, Mr. Owens.
Thank you, Your Honor. If I can just have one moment.
All right.
Good morning, Deputy Klein.
Good morning, sir.
Can you tell us what you do for a living?
I'm a deputy sheriff with the San Diego Sheriff's Department.
What's your current assignment?
I'm currently assigned as a traffic investigator in the city of Vista.
Now, I want to ask you some questions about a report that you took on May 24th of 2018. Do you recall the incident that I'm referring to?
Yes, sir.
On that day, were you working within the city of Encinitas?
Yes, sir.
Is that something that you would routinely do as a patrol officer or as a patrol deputy from one substation? You may work in another.
Yes, sir.
Were you working overtime that day?
Yes, sir.
Did you have your body-worn camera with you?
Yes, sir.
Did you respond, without giving the address, did you respond to a residence on Lake Drive in the Cardiff area of Encinitas?
Yes, sir.
And is that very close proximity to Birmingham?
Yes, sir.
When you responded to that location, did you receive a crime report from a woman that we're referring to as Jane 3?
Yes, sir.
Did you also speak to her husband?
Yes, sir.
And during the course of that crime report, was your body-worn camera activated recording the conversation?
Yes, sir.
And referring to what's been marked as Court's Exhibit 85, it's a still frame at this point in time. Looking at that still shot, does that reflect the body-worn camera video recording?
Yes, sir.
Looking at the date stamp that's actually placed upon the Axon body-worn camera that you were wearing that day, does that reflect a different day than the day you took the report?
No, sir.
Does that show, in fact, 5/25/2018?
If I could refer to my report for that.
Please do.
Oh, yes, the report was taken on 5/24.
In fact, you were dispatched pursuant to a 911 call on May 24th of that year, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So is the date stamp, at least as it relates to that body-worn camera print, just incorrect by one day?
Yes, sir, it's incorrect.
Now, when you spoke to this woman, did she give you a general description of the person who had exposed his penis to her?
Yes, sir.
Do you recall the physical description that she gave?
Yes, sir.
When you were asking her specifically about the height of the suspect, did you tell her that it didn't need to be exact?
Yes, sir.
Did she hold her hand over her head when she was describing how tall he was?
Yes, sir.
Did she point at you when she was describing how tall she was?
Yes, sir.
How tall he was?
Yes, sir.
And did she say he was a little bit shorter than you?
Yes, sir.
How tall are you?
About 6'3", 6'4", probably with boots on.
And I'm sorry to ask, but how much do you weigh?
Probably 250 pounds.
Do you work out?
Yes, sir.
Do you work out frequently?
Yes, sir.
How much do you bench? If I can ask.
Around the 300-pound range.
After you had taken this crime report, did you document the information that was given to you by this woman shortly after?
Yes, sir.
Did you draft a report containing that information?
Yes, sir.
When you were speaking to her about the height of the suspect, was her husband, in fact, the man who actually used the estimate of 5'8" or 5'9"?
Yes, sir.
Did she ever say 5'8" or 5'9", if you recall?
I believe when he had said 5'8", 5'9", she kind of agreed with him.
And did you document that in your report?
Yes, sir.
Nothing further, Your Honor. Ross?
Deputy Klein, you document in your report the description of the individual, right?
Yes, sir.
And you said that it was an adult male, 5 feet 8 inches tall, short hair and medium build, right?
Yes, sir.
Because that's what she told you, right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, anything further?
No.
Can this witness be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes?
Yes.
All right, Deputy Klein, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a nice day.
You too.
Take care. Next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. People now call Ann Williams.
You do solemnly state that the testimony you are about to give in the matter now pending before this court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? If you would, please have a seat at the witness stand. And if you would, please state your name and spell your first and last name for the record.
My name is Ann Williams, ANNWILLIAMS.
Thank you.
All right, good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
All right, direct examination.
Just one bit of technical difficulty. Ms. Williams, can you please tell the jury what you do for a living?
I'm a registered nurse and I'm also a forensic nurse examiner.
Can you tell the jury what a forensic nurse examiner is?
A forensic nurse examiner is a registered nurse who has undertaken extra training on top of her registered nursing training in the area of forensic nursing.
What is forensic nursing?
Forensic nursing is when you apply medical knowledge in order to obtain an exam for somebody who has been assaulted.
Now, what sort of training and experience do you have working with women who have been sexually assaulted, or even men?
I've had a lot of training through my, previously before I started forensic nursing, I was an emergency room nurse and an ICU nurse, so I dealt with a lot of patients that have been in crisis and has been assaulted. For the last 8 years, I've been a forensic nurse that have taken care of patients that have been sexually assaulted.
And what sort of educational background do you have in order to be a registered nurse, and specifically what education did you receive in order to become a forensic nurse?
I actually trained back in England many years ago. I've been a nurse a qualified nurse for 38 years and I still love it. I came over here and did my foreign nurse exam and my state boards. I've held a nursing license in 7 different states. And then 8 years ago, I started undertaking some education for forensic nursing. That involves a 40-hour basic course for forensic nursing. Once you are proficient at the exams, then you do an advanced course for an 8-hour course. I've also done a 40-hour medical evidentiary examiner for pediatrics, followed by another advanced course for 8 hours on that. We also do a 40-hour strangulation training, prevention training for 40 hours, and also a Campbell danger assessment, which is how to assess a patient who may be in a dangerous situation. We also do a lot of continuing education for forensic photography, forensic exam techniques.
In a typical day, as a SANE or a sexual assault nurse examiner, what would be your duties?
We are on an on-call basis, and then when we respond to a call, usually from a police or law enforcement, that somebody has been sexually assaulted, we coordinate with that police officer that they bring the patient into one of our 3 facilities that we have. We have one in Fig Street in Escondido, one in Poway, and one down at the Family Justice Center in downtown. Occasionally we will go out if the patient is in, say, an intensive care unit and cannot come to our facility. And then once we have coordinated, the law enforcement will bring that patient to our facility. I will have found out through the police where that person lives so that I can call for a patient advocate who is not the law, they're not medical, they are there for the resources of that person.
Now, in terms of what a SANE does, once you've made initial contact with a reported sexual assault victim, do you have a certain approach or methodology to what you do each time? I
do, as most of my colleagues do too. First and foremost, I am a nurse, so I take care of this patient who is in front of me. And apart from doing a medical assessment of any medical injuries that they may have, we do a danger assessment to make sure that they are safe and somewhere to go to. Then I also incorporate forensic techniques, which is an unbiased, non-judgmental technique of collecting evidence.
Now, when you're attempting to collect evidence, are you referring to actual physical evidence on the body?
It can involve can contain documentation of symptomology of how they have expressed how they feel, also a history of what has happened, the reason we ask questions about what happened when they were assaulted. This helps us look for any areas for medical injuries and also for evidence collection. On top of the narrative, we also collect physical swabs. Sometimes we collect clothing, debris, things like that.
Now, when you are referring to the history that's being provided, is that where you're actually asking the individual, your patient, as you refer to them, what happened to them that led them to come to the police and ultimately to you?
We ask a narrative of what happened, but we also, as part of our format that we ask, is specific questions about what happened during the assault also.
What types of questions are asked when you say that you have a format that you follow?
We have a state form that everybody who does a SART exam in the state of California will follow. This gives a standard of care so that we each do the exam and the questioning in the same manner.
Can you explain to the jury, in your general practice and your general methodology, the approach that you have, what is one of the first steps that you take, and what is one of the first steps that you follow when you meet the reported victim and when you explain to them what you're about to do?
First and foremost, I explain who I am. I introduce myself, tell them why I'm there, what I'm going to be doing, how long the procedure is going to be taking, and then I go through a consent, explaining that everything is totally voluntary on their part, that they have the right to withdraw their consent at any time, and I explain in detail a little bit about everything that we're going to be doing to help delay their fears here. And so I kind of talk to them and bond with them initially.
When you say that you try to talk to them and bond with them initially, do you try to establish a rapport with the patient?
Yes.
Is that often referred to as bedside manner?
Yes.
Now, when you're talking to a person who's reported to have been a victim of a sexual assault, as opposed to perhaps intimate partner violence or domestic abuse of a physical nature, do you have any training and experience with any training and experience in how to work with an individual such as that?
I've had quite a bit of experience, especially before I started forensic nursing, which is specifically domestic violence, sexual assaults or other kinds of assaults. I also dealt with a lot of patients who would come in through the emergency room in crisis mode.
And in terms of your experience in working with sexual assault victims, have you come to any conclusions about how victims of reported sexual assaults would act when you're interacting with them?
Everybody is very different.
What do you mean by that?
Everybody responds to a stressful situation very differently. It depends on their background. It depends on what has happened to them before. So no two people react the same way to a sexual assault.
Have you seen that over the course of your experience as a SANE?
Yes.
Have you also seen that over the course of your experience as a registered nurse?
Yes.
Approximately how many sexual assault exams have you personally completed?
Oh, probably about 150.
And would that extend over what time period?
Over the past 8 years.
And over the course of those 150 approximate exams, is that what has informed your conclusion that everyone responds differently?
Yes.
Have you seen situations where people shut down and are non-communicative?
Overruled, all out, it's foundational.
Can you ask the question again,
I
please?
can. Have you seen situations where reported sexual assault victims shut down completely and are non-communicative?
Certainly, everybody responds differently to a traumatic experience.
Have you seen situations where people are angry and shouting about what had happened to them?
Yes.
Have you also seen situations where the reported sexual assault victims are tearful and crying at the time that they talk about what happened?
Yes.
Have you seen situations where people talk about what happened to them, but they are stone-faced and not showing any emotion?
Yes.
Is that what you mean when you say that everyone responds differently?
Correct.
Now, in terms of the rapport that you establish and the information that you're providing them, once you've established that rapport, what is it that you tell them about what you're there to do?
I always explain that I'm here to ask them questions about the assault. I'm going to be doing a physical exam after the assault to make sure to check for any medical injuries that they may have, and also to collect any evidence that I may be able to collect.
Can you explain to them what the evidence collection aspect of the exam actually means, what you'll physically be doing at that time, or does that come later?
I usually do a brief overview because it depends on the history. Sometimes we do evidence collection per protocol, and then that we can also add on things depending on the history that she might have told me.
Do you explain to the sexual assault victim their right to consent to the exam and their right to decline the exam?
Yes.
Do you obtain an informed consent waiver each time that you complete a sexual assault examination?
Yes.
Now, I'm going to talk to you about what happened on back in May of 2018, specifically May 14th. Were you working in your capacity as a sexual assault nurse examiner?
Yes, I was.
Did you, in fact, come into contact that afternoon or early evening with a woman by the name that we're referring to as Jane Doe 2?
I did.
If I may, Your Honor, to alert the court and any media present that I will be displaying an exhibit at this time.
All right, thank you, go ahead.
Your Honor, just so the record is clear, that Ms. Williams has a document in front of her. I don't have any problem with her using that to refresh her recollection. I just want to have the record clear that she does have a document in front of her.
All right, the record will so reflect she has a document with some notes written on it. All right, are you showing, this is going to be exhibit number 2?
Yes, Your Honor, just having the same difficulty I had a moment ago. 1 second.
Well, I think she could see the image at least.
Okay.
Did you see the image of court exhibit number 2? All right, next, there it is.
There we are. Just have to reset it. Thank you very much, Your Honor. Showing you Court's Exhibit 2, do you recognize that person as Jane Doe 2?
I do.
Did you meet her on May 14th of 2018?
I did.
When you met with her, did you prepare a report that you've already referred to as being the state standardized form for a sexual assault examination?
I did.
Is this also referred to as a SART exam?
It is.
What does SART stand for, and why is it referred to as a SART exam?
SART actually stands for a Sexual Assault Response Team, which actually refers to the team, including the law enforcement, patient advocate, a forensic nurse, detectives, maybe child protective services. But a lot of people refer to a rape kit or a SART exam or a SANE exam as a SART. They're all interchangeable.
Are SANEs one members of the team on the sexual assault response team?
They are.
And they coordinate with law enforcement entities as well as private organizations that assist sexual assault victims, is that right?
Correct.
Now, when you met with Jane Doe number 2 that day, did you follow your standard methodology in conducting an exam?
I did.
Did you attempt to establish a rapport with her?
I did.
Can you describe for the jury what steps you took in order to do that?
Usually I met with Jane Doe. I introduced myself, who I am, what it is I'm going to be doing. I ask if she needs anything to eat or drink first. Sometimes patients come to me and they have been a prolonged length of time either getting to our facility or maybe have been in the emergency room. And I also ask a few quick questions first in case I need to take any evidence from the oral cavity before I actually give her anything to eat or drink. Maybe sometimes patients come in and they're still a little bit cold, they're a little bit shaken, so I can offer them a blanket. I introduce them to the patient advocate who is there for their resources and support. And so I talk to the patient a little bit first.
Did you talk to her about who she was?
Yes.
Did she give you her name, yes or no?
Yes,
Did she give you her age?
she did.
How old was she?
58, I believe.
And when you talked to her and were attempting to establish this rapport, can you describe her demeanor?
It was calm. It was cooperative. She made good eye contact.
When you talked to her about the history that you referred to or what happened, did that take place at the beginning or before the physical examination, or did that take place afterwards?
The history of the assault will take place before the exam.
And did you do that in that case, in this case, in order to attempt to determine what evidence you may try to collect over the course of that examination?
Correct.
And when you spoke to her about what happened, did she tell you about the events of the preceding night?
Initially, she did not, because I was asking her for some medical patient history, which we routinely go through. Her medical background, if she has any genital problems, predisposing genital problems, anal problems, if she's on type of medication maybe that would interfere with the exam results.
As it related to any genital, anal problems, did she report any at that time?
She denied.
And when you say that she denied, does that mean that she stated she did not have any?
She said no.
Other than those possibly related to the sexual assault itself, is that right?
These are related to before the assault.
I understand. When you talked to her about what happened, did she tell you about the previous night of May 13th, 2018?
She did.
Did she explain to you that she had been with friends on that evening when she got into a vehicle with a man?
We have a witness here, Chris.
I'm sorry, what was,
There's a witness here. It's leading.
okay, so the objection is leading?
Yes.
The objection is sustained.
And I'll ask it this way. Do you have a copy of your report before you?
I do, sir.
Is that the document that counsel was referring to as being in front of you?
It is. It's a copy of my report.
And that report, was that taken down at the time that you actually took the statement from Jane Doe number 2?
Yes.
And did you prepare that report based upon the specific statement given to you as you noted it contemporaneously?
Yes.
Were there portions of your report that you included within quotes attributing them to Jane Doe 2?
Yes.
As it relates to what she shared with you in that initial history portion of the sexual assault, what did she tell you she had been doing before the assault?
May I refer to my copy of the report?
Yes, if it would refresh your recollection, please do.
I want to give correct information.
And once again, Your Honor, for the purpose of the speed, I have no problem with this witness using the report.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you very much.
Jane Doe number 2 had described being out with some friends. She had described that she had met the suspect who'd asked her to get coffee. And then she had some quotes here that, shall I read the quote?
Well, first let me ask you in terms of the suspect, who did she say drove up to her when she was with her friends?
She said it was a gentleman called Kevin.
Did she say that Kevin asked her to get coffee?
Correct.
What did she say happened after Kevin asked her to get coffee?
She described her being driven around, and then she realized that he had driven her to a dark area that was not near any coffee shops.
What did she say happened, and is this a portion that's actually in quotes after that?
Yes.
What did she say happened?
Jane Doe number 2, and this is a quote, "I thought there was no coffee shops around here and it's late. I asked if we were going to Denny's, and he said, yeah. He turned around. I knew I was in trouble. It was by dirt on side of road. He parked. He got out of his car. I locked my car door. He unlocked it and said something about having sex and me standing up saying, please don't do this 4 times.
Did she tell you a specific quote of what the man then said to her after she said, please don't do this?
He said, and this is a quote from Jane Doe number 2, it's a done deal, it's going to happen.
What did she say?
All right, next question.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. What did she say the man did after she said, please don't do this?
Jane Doe number 2 then proceeded to tell me that he had me take off my pants and put my legs up, and he did his thing.
When she used the phrase, he did his thing, did you attempt to clarify what she meant by that?
I clarified that meant his penis went in her vagina.
How do you clarify that sort of a phrase when you're conducting a sexual assault exam and documenting the history?
Pretty blunt, I ask exactly what does that mean, what part of his body went in what part of your body.
And did she specifically state to you that he then placed his penis inside her vagina?
Yes.
What did she say he did next after he had done his thing, as she said?
After that, she told me, then he had me get out of the car and proceed to have sex in my bottom. I started screaming.
Did she use the phrase, in my bottom?
Yes.
What did you take that to mean?
Being her anus.
And did you ask any further clarification based upon what she had said?
I didn't, because I thought a bottom was pretty self-explanatory.
Was there any sort of misunderstanding between the two of you as you were discussing that?
No.
Now, what did she say happened when he proceeded to have sex in her anus?
She said, I started screaming, then he got angry and pulled me onto my seat, and he had his hands around my neck. I said, if you hurt me, I will scream.
Did you place that entire portion within quotes?
Yes, I did.
Based upon that information that she had given to you, did you then take steps in order to complete a strangulation documentation?
No, I carried on with the narrative in this portion. We do have a strangulation addendum, which is a separate part of this exam, but I tend to do that independently from the narrative because I want to get the complete story.
What did she say happened after he had choked her in that way?
Jane Doe number 2 said, when he got done, ejaculate, he did it to the side of me.
Did you have to clarify what she meant when she said he did it to the side of me?
I did, and she clarified that he ejaculated to the side of the patient, not inside her or on her.
Was that an important fact for you in conducting your physical examination?
It's an important fact so that when I do the physical examination, I can look for any evidence that may be in that area that he may have ejaculated on her.
And the fact that she reported that he had not ejaculated on her or inside of her, does that factor into ultimately what evidence is available?
Yes.
What did she say happened after that?
She said, we got in the car and got dressed. I told the guy he had a weapon or something. I said, please, please, just take me home. I said, if you tell anybody... Oh, sorry, clarification. He said, if you tell anybody, I will murder you, and he looked straight ahead.
Did she in fact say that he had a weapon?
She said that he had a weapon or something.
What did she say happened after he threatened her in that way while looking straight ahead?
She said he drove me and dropped me off. I forgot my purse in his car. My friends said I should tell.
Now, after talking to her about the history of what had happened the previous night, did you then ask her a series of standardized questions about the physical acts that took place within the context of that reported sexual assault?
I did.
And what types of questions would those be?
We asked specific questions about if she had known the possible suspect, if the suspect had threatened her, if he threatened her with any future harm, if there was any talk or use of a weapon, and then specifics about what part of the anatomy of his anatomy went on her anatomy.
Did you specifically ask her whether she had consumed any alcohol prior to the sexual assault?
I did.
And what did she say?
She denied.
Did you specifically ask her whether or not she consumed any drugs prior to the sexual assault?
I did.
And what did she say?
She denied.
Now, did you in fact collect blood and urine samples from Jane Doe number 2 to then be subsequently tested to determine whether or not there was any sort of blood alcohol concentration or toxicology.
With her consent, I did.
And did you impound that along with the other items collected during the SART examination?
I did.
Now, when you asked her about her knowledge of the suspect, did she say whether or not she had known him before or ever met him before?
She had said, and may I read a quote from my report?
If you have placed it in quotes, please do.
This is what Jane Doe number 2 said. She said, Kevin, drive-by friend, 30 to 40, dark complexion, strong tattoos, right arm, thick black bands, and some more tattoos on the left arm.
Did you ask her whether or not she had been threatened in any specific way?
I did.
What did she say?
She said, he said he would choke or murder me if I screamed or told anyone.
Did you ask her if there was a threat of future harm and specifically what she remembered the man saying to her?
Check these elements.
Overruled, comes in under 791. You can answer.
Can you ask the question again, please?
Yes. Did you ask her if there was a threat of future harm, and if there was, what specific words he used?
Jane Doe number 2 said, and I quote, he said he would murder me if I told anybody.
Did you ask her if there were any physical blows or to her during the course of the sexual assault?
I did.
How did she respond?
She denied.
Did you ask her if she believed that there was a weapon accessible?
She said yes.
And what did she say about that?
She said, and I quote, I don't know, but he maybe had something I don't know.
Did you ask her if she had been strangled?
I did.
And what did she say?
She said yes.
Did she give you a description of what happened?
I did, and that is in the strangulation addendum.
Now, did you complete that at that time, or did you just ask her the standardized questions and continue on?
To be honest, I can't quite remember.
Okay. Did she say whether or not or how she had been strangled, with one or both hands?
She had said that she had been strangled with 2 hands and that he'd stood in front of her.
Did she say whether or not she had experienced any pain or other issues as a result of that?
Yes, at these initial questions, it was neck pain and some difficulty in breathing.
And when you completed the strangulation addendum, did you ask more specific questions about what she experienced as a result of it?
I did.
When you talked to her about what she was experiencing, did you in fact confirm that he had used 2 hands?
I did.
Did you ask her to estimate how long the strangulation lasted?
I did.
And what did she say?
She said that it had been 1 to 2 minutes.
Did you ask her to estimate the level of force that he used?
I did, but I find this is a very hard question for patients to verbalize how strong is the pressure on their neck. She had just said that I was suffocating.
Now, in terms of the questioning, at least, did you ask her how he was acting at the time that he had choked her in the way that she had described with both hands?
I did.
How did she describe how he was acting?
We asked what the suspect's emotional demeanor was while he was strangling you, and she said, and I quote, nonchalant but serious.
Were those her words?
Those are her words.
Did you ask her what the suspect said while he was strangling her in that way?
I did.
And what did she say?
She said, and I quote, if you scream, I'm going to kill you.
Did she say what else he did? Or did you ask her what else he did while strangling her?
She said that he just talked.
Did you ask her if she was able to speak?
I did.
And how did she respond?
She said, barely, I sounded funny. If you hurt me, I'm going to scream. If you don't hurt me, I won't scream.
Did you ask her if she fought back or attempted to do anything at the time that she was being strangled?
I did.
And what did she say?
And she said, no, I wouldn't move. It was getting tighter. I wasn't going to mess around.
Did you ask her if anything made the suspect stop?
She said, convinced that I wasn't going to scream.
And when she said convinced that I wasn't going to scream, was she referring to the suspect?
I believe so.
Did you ask her the specific question of what she was thinking during that act?
I did.
And what did she say?
She said, I could be dead. If I scream, he was going to choke me.
Did you ask her if the suspect had ever strangled her on any prior occasions?
I did.
And what did she say?
She said no.
Now, in terms of what she experienced as a result of this, she described neck pain, is that right?
Correct.
She described feeling as though she had been suffocating, is that right?
She said it was very hard to breathe.
And did she say anything about her voice or whether she was able to speak clearly?
She described her voice as being different, weird.
Now, when you talked to her about the specific sexual acts that occurred during the assault, did you ask her if there was penile vaginal penetration?
I did.
And this is, again, within the standardized questioning that you ask in order to collect evidence, is that right?
Correct.
Did you ask her if there was penetration of the anus by the suspect's penis?
Yes.
And how did she respond?
She answered yes.
Now, did you ask her if ejaculation had occurred?
I did.
And how did she respond?
She had said, she reiterated that he had ejaculated to the side of her.
And did you know that it was at the crime scene?
Yes.
And not necessarily knowing where that was, is that how you documented it within your report?
Yes.
Now, in terms of the physical examination that you conducted, you mentioned that the way that you document the evidence that's collected is both through the obtaining of the history, the standardized questioning, and then you also document it photographically. Is that correct?
Correct.
When you complete a sexual assault examination report, are there diagrams that are available to you to be able to note any findings that you have?
Yes.
And did you, in fact, complete some of those diagrams based upon your visual and medical inspection of the of Jane Doe 2?
Yes.
In addition to that, did you also take photographs of certain areas of Jane Doe number 2 in order to preserve the way she looked when you had seen her?
With her consent, yes.
And looking at Court's Exhibit 2 to your right or across the court to your left, is that one of the photographs that you in fact took?
Yes.
Now, turning to Court's Exhibit 28 for identification. Looking at that photograph, is that a close-up view of the front of Jane Doe number 2's neck?
It is.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
I'm going to show you a series of photographs and diagrams. I'm going to ask if you can just identify what is seen in them as we go forward to ensure that we're accurately describing them. So beginning with Court's Exhibit 28, that frontal view of Jane Doe 2's neck. Why was it that you focused in upon this area of her body?
Any patient that comes with a history of strangulation, we do a series of photography with a specialized camera of the neck, the head, the eyes, the ears, and this is one of the standard protocol pictures.
When you examined the frontal neck area of Jane Doe number 2, did you note whether she had any bruising?
There was no bruising noted.
Did you know whether she had any redness?
There was no redness noted.
In the course of your experience as a sexual assault nurse examiner, do you have a particular area of expertise in strangulation?
We have extensive training in strangulation.
Can you describe for the jury, generally speaking, what happens during the course of strangulation? And if we can just use Court's Exhibit 31 to explain further. And if you'd like, you could step down. I can get you the pointer.
Oh, yes, please. Okay, shall I do it on this one or that one?
Whichever is easier for you. I'm not sure if you'll be able to reach up top. So whatever you'd like to do.
Okay. Probably be able to see better here.
Okay.
I'll try and reach. So this is the anatomy of the neck. This is the most unprotected part of your body. There's a lot of structures here that are vital to life. There is your windpipe. When you breathe in, you have your carotid arteries that take your blood up to your brain, and then veins that bring the empty blood, necessarily empty blood, back down. So when you breathe in and that takes the oxygen to your lungs. You need that to survive. Once it's in the lungs, that oxygen then is brought up by these red arteries up to the brain. This takes vital oxygen and nutrients up to your brain. You cannot live, your brain tissues cannot live without oxygen and nutrients. Once that oxygen is up in your brain, then the deoxygenated blood, the blue lines, come down to take that blood back to the lungs so it can pick up more oxygen to go up to the brain. There is cartilage here around the windpipe that helps with the voice box. It also helps protect the windpipe. There is nothing here outside here to protect these arteries or veins. So they're the veins are superficial, they're just underneath the skin. The arteries are a little bit deeper. So if you have pressure on the arteries or the veins, then that will stop this vital oxygen going up to the blood. If you have pressure on the windpipe, that is going to stop the oxygen going down to your lungs. You're going to be short of breath, you're going to be short of breath, you can get a little bit dizzy with that. You're going to certainly be very anxious about not being able to breathe. That's one of our basic instincts in life. If there is pressure on these red arteries, that will stop the flow of good oxygen and nutrients going up to the brain. If you put pressure on that, then you can have not many signs. There's no signs here on your neck, but you're going to have symptoms. You may have loss of vision or tunnel vision. You may have changes in your hearing. You may get a little bit disorientated. You may lose your memory. You may black out. You may urinate or defecate yourself because your body is in a defense mode and trying to send all that blood and oxygen up to your brain. And amount of pressure that you put on your arteries, if it's for 10 seconds, about 11 pounds of pressure, you will be unconscious. If that continuous pressure remains on that artery, you can be dead within 3 or 4 minutes because there's no oxygen going up to your brain. The veins are a little bit closer to the skin. So if you apply pressure to these veins on each side of your neck, then it only takes about 4 or 5 pounds of pressure for 10 seconds to give you some symptoms. It may not make you unconscious, but you will have back pressure in your brain because the blood's not able to come back down again. So you may have burst blood capillaries that can show up in your eyes or your ears. They're like little red spots. You can also have the hearing changes again. You also have you have a nerve that goes up the neck, your vagus nerve. If you apply pressure on that, that can slow down your heart, can give you a heart attack, and give you a lot of abnormal blood rhythms, cardiac rhythms. And also there's about 50 small muscles that keep all the structures in place. If those are traumatized or pressure is applied, then you can have swelling inside the neck area with these muscles. That can give you a hoarse voice, a raspy voice, changes in your voice because your voice box is right there. There's also some longer symptoms that you may have that may be weeks, months, or even years afterwards. You may dissect one of these little arteries, the lining of your arteries or your veins, through the trauma and the pressure, and that can cause a slow leak. Parts of plaque in your arteries or your veins may break off, and that can cause you a stroke and death many years later. So that is the anatomy of the neck.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Go ahead and resume your seat. Showing you Courts Exhibit 30. Is that the left side view of Jane Doe number 2's neck? Once you've resumed your seat, careful.
Sorry, what was your question?
Is that the left side view of the neck?
It is.
And
Now it's Court Exhibit 30. We have the hard copy there in front of you.
I do.
And showing you again now Courts Exhibit 29. Is that the right side view of Jane Doe number 2's neck?
Correct.
And in either the frontal, the left, or the right view of her neck, did you notice any pronounced swelling or bruising of any sort?
No.
How frequently do you expect to see bruising after a reported choking act?
Sometimes we will see bruising from finger marks or hand marks on the neck, or ligature marks if it was used by a cord. Sometimes there are defensive wounds, meaning the person is using their own fingers to get the person's hands off their neck, so they may actually scratch themselves because they are fighting for their life. Usually, though, over 50% of our patients appear with no physical signs because, again, it takes so little pressure to apply pressure to these vital arteries and veins that usually you don't see many signs, physical signs on the neck.
When you say that it takes so little pressure to compress the vital organs, does that include the windpipe?
Yes.
Is it fairly common, in fact, over 50% of the time, that someone would not have any visible trauma on the exterior portion of the skin, even though they had their windpipe restricted?
Correct.
Now, would the pressure that would be necessary in order to restrict the windpipe, would that be less pressure than would be necessary to cause trauma within the veins or arteries around the neck that could then lead to bruising?
It's actually more pressure you would need to the trachea. The windpipe is encased with cartilage, so it takes a lot more pressure to actually do any damage to that windpipe area. However, you can have damage around the area, and that will allow for some inflammation around the voice box and the windpipe.
Now, you mentioned when you were describing the anatomy of the neck that oftentimes, one of the most basic, fundamental aspects of life is the desire to breathe.
Yes.
When, based upon your experience in dealing with sexual assault victims, is the restriction of the airway, does that cause trauma?
Emotional trauma and physical trauma, yes.
When you're using the term emotional trauma, what do you mean?
Emotional trauma, if somebody is thinking that they often will say, in my experience, that they think they're going to die because they can't get any oxygen, they can't breathe.
Now, in addition to the area of the neck that you examined, did you also take other photographs of other areas of the body that you were examining in order to explore the potential evidence that may relate to the sexual assault?
I took pictures regarding the strangulation and also pictures regarding the sexual assault, genital pictures.
I want to talk to you about the physical examination that you did in the genitalia first. Can you describe whether or not you noted any visible findings related to Jane Doe number 2's vaginal area?
With her consent, I did an assessment of her genital area. I also did some genital photography with her consent. I did notice that she had on her hymen, which is the opening of the vagina, a small area of redness.
What is redness also known as erythema?
Yes.
What does redness or erythema indicate to you as a sexual assault nurse examiner?
Erythema, the redness on a hymen, it can be from medical reasons. This is why we ask specific questions about genital medical questions at the beginning of the interview. Usually with medical redness on the hymen, it's usually diffuse, it's around the whole area. This area of redness was just at the top portion of the hymen.
And do you still have the pointer with you? I'll grab it for you, one moment. Showing you now Courts Exhibit 32 for identification. Do you have that in front of you and displayed on the TV?
Yes.
Is this the diagram that you completed related to the hymen area where you noted the erythema?
Correct.
Can you just point to the area when you're saying that it was alongside the hymen that indicated that form of redness?
This area here is the hymen, and then this area, which we call 12 o'clock, looking at a face clock face, this is the area that was specific, that showed some redness.
Is redness in that area consistent with trauma or blunt force or some form of friction in that specific location?
It is non-specific, as in we don't really know what the cause would be. It's just a little suspicious if it's one area of the hymen. It's not throughout the whole area of the hymen.
And now I'm going to show you a photograph of that area on Courts Exhibit 33. If you can just indicate what it is that you're referring to and what it is that you saw.
This is the anterior part of the hymen, and there's some redness right here.
And do you see that in the area that you indicated with the redness on the interior portion of the hymen, did you in fact actually manipulate that area physically in order to take that photograph?
I did.
And what is it that you did in order to be able to take that photograph of that specific area?
With gloves, you can see my gloves here. You actually apply traction to separate the labia.
And did you separate the labia in order to note that redness that was on the interior hymen?
Yes.
Showing you Courts Exhibit 34 for identification, do you recognize this diagram?
Yes, I do.
And I want to ask you about any findings that you noted as it related to the anus of Jane Doe number 2.
This is the anus, and there was 2 findings. One was a redness, and the other was more red-purple area.
What does first redness indicate again in this type of location? Is it any different than it would be if it was located in the hymen?
It is a little. Usually we will ask patient history, if they've had any hemorrhoids, if they've had any anal fissulas, if they've had pain or bleeding with when they defecate. She denied any of these. Again, she had some redness and this purple area, which was non-specific. We can't actually say what caused that. But it's not around the whole anus area.
And as to the red-purple second area that was indicated, what does that show you, or what does that tell you?
That can be rubbing. It could be a start of an abrasion. It could be the start of a bruise. But I tend to just call it what I see it, either red or purple, because we don't actually know what the cause of that would be.
And does that indicate to you when you see redness or red-purple indications, does that tell you that there was perhaps some form of blunt force to apply to that area?
It possibly could.
And showing you Courts Exhibit 35 for identification, is this the photograph that you took noting those 2 findings?
Yes.
Can you please show the jury with the pointer where the redness was located?
It's down here.
And you're indicating about the center of the exhibit, slightly below the anal opening, is that right?
Yes.
And where was the red-purple indication?
Up here.
And that would be closer along the interior portion of the anus, is that anal
Yes.
opening, is that right?
Correct.
And did you in fact manipulate that area as well in order to be able to photograph it?
Yes.
What did you do?
I applied traction obviously with gloves on. You apply traction to the anal folds to bring the area more visual.
Thank you. Now would be a good time, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. We will take our clean recess at this time, so we'll be back right here at 1:30. Please remember the admonition. We'll see you back here right at 1:30. Have a nice lunch. We're in recess.